Hey guys, welcome to the Money Mix podcast number 13. I'm Al, and that's Stan. So we're going to get right into it right away. So what's the first topic?
So the first topic is affirmative action for college admission has been deemed by the courts to essentially be illegal, and that's not going to happen anymore as of right now. I think that there's going to be a lot of chaos arising from this. Let me ask Al what he thinks.
Wait, but what do you mean by chaos? What are you referring to? Do you mean like college admissions chaos, or do you mean there's going to be like violence in the streets or
Well,
protests?
I mean, it could be both. I mean, the students who will potentially want to attend particular colleges are not going to be able to do so, and yeah, there could be attacks on particular colleges. There could be riots and protests and discrimination being held, as something coming back again towards mainly black students.
But
So yeah, it could actually happen.
wait, I'm a little confused. So you're saying this is down the road, or you mean like right now people are going to be like rioting or whatever? Because I'm a little confused as to what you're saying. You're saying that right now we're going to have like something happening, or are you talking about like later down the road people are going to bring up, hey, why aren't there more Latino people in this college? Why aren't there more Black people in this college?
No, I think that as of right now, when it sinks in that a lot of students are not going to be able to compete based on their race, and it's going to be much more
Well, so
difficult to
it's
get
not
in.
compete versus based on their race. They're not going to be able to compete based on their grades because that's the thing. So for
That's
example,
true. Yes,
if
yes.
your grades weren't good enough to compete with somebody who's from like just has better grades than you, but your race is of a minority, you would be able to. And minority, I exclude Asian people because that's it seems like very different or something now. But uh,
I
Black
don't.
people,
I
Latino
don't.
people. What?
It's funny. I don't think that Asians are being considered a minority in that area because in colleges, most likely they're close to the majority.
Oh, they
Uh,
definitely are in terms of percentage of the race.
yeah,
They definitely are a majority in most high-end schools, especially.
exactly. That's what I'm referring to. But well, what I mean, they're not going to be able to compete based on their actual race. Is that when somebody who's a minority applies for college, there's a certain percentage of minorities that have to be admitted into that particular college. Since they can't compete based on their race, they have to compete based on their grades. And I just don't know. I'm being honest. I'm not saying that minorities are actually bad students or anything like that.
Well, I mean, Asian people would be a perfect example of that not being the case.
Right. Asian people are not, in that sense, being compared, for admissions because I think they were the ones that were complaining about the
Of
fact that
course.
they're not as many of them are being admitted because minorities are taking those spots. I mean, essentially, it's like Hollywood, right? Each movie, each show, they have to have a particular set of minorities, right? Instead of competing based on their God-given talents, they're competing based on the race. And in my opinion, obviously that's not correct. If the college itself is discriminating against a person who is a minority, I think obviously they should be held liable and punished, and that particular person or persons should be admitted into the school, right? I mean, I don't think anybody disagrees with that. It's just the fact that not a person who does not do well in college may not actually be someone who belongs in college. And from my perspective, right, when I went to college, I wasn't the best student at all. At all, I wasn't like a great student, and I didn't like to actually study something that I didn't care for. And I think this is also a big issue. a lot of I would probably say half of the courses in college are just like throwaways. Like you
Okay,
don't.
okay. I feel like okay, okay. I feel like with this like line of thought, we're kind of getting away from the main topic in
I'm
terms of
just saying. Oh yeah, I
affirmative
agree.
action.
Yeah, no, I agree with. But what I'm trying to say is, don't try to go to college because I'm a minority and I should just be there. Like have a
I don't
goal.
think
You know.
I don't think anybody was that way, but I do think people did start taking advantage of that, and honestly, a lot of times to their detriment, because there have been a lot of people who went to college that didn't have the grades for that. Like for example, for Harvard, they didn't have the grades exactly, and they went to school and they couldn't keep up with everybody else just because they like there's a big difference between somebody who got a 4.0 and somebody who got a 4.6 GPA. Though like even though they seem both very very amazing, there's a big difference between that because those are AP classes that people took that are a higher level of learning. And if you don't have those and you're thinking, well, yeah, but I did really well in regular history classes and regular math classes and so on, and then you go to a higher level school that is legitimately for geniuses, and then you go, oh, these are completely out of my league. There's a lot of kids that drop out because of that. And
Yeah. The
that
interesting
that is obviously not very helpful.
the interesting thing when I noticed when I went to college, right? The first few weeks we had like loaded classes with students. People were trying to actually, be on the wait list, and the classroom was full. There's a particular time frame where you can actually drop a class and not actually receive a bad grade or a mark against that. And I noticed that there was always a percentage of people that would, stay for those few weeks and then just drop out. You know what I mean? It was just something like weird. Did you ever notice that?
Yeah, no, yeah, yes, to answer your question, yes, but I feel like that's pretty much for every college. I feel like everyone has like really like, oh, this is the class I'm going to take, and then there's always like dropouts. I think every teacher basically goes like, yeah, like there's going to be less students by the middle of the semester than beginning of the semester, just because
Yeah,
people will.
yeah,
But
yeah,
I do. Okay, so I do believe when it comes to just affirmative action, I do believe it had a place for it when it was first established. I do understand the need for it when literally you had like, Harvard going, hey, we're not gonna let anybody in that's not white. They weren't necessarily saying that, but the colleges across the board were not letting anybody in. So, like even a lot of schools weren't letting people in, like regular grade schools.
yeah.
So I
Well,
understand.
actually,
So I just want to mention this.
yeah,
I understand why it was needed then. The problem is now that's not the case. Now we do have colleges and every school letting anybody in just if you're good enough. The problem is that now they're letting in people who are not deserving, don't have the grades enough just because of the color of somebody's skin. And
correct.
that's where I think that there were a lot of people who were like, wait a second, isn't that wrong? Shouldn't we not base it on that, but base it on actual people academic, prowess? But
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
No, I absolutely agree with you on that. It should only be based on academics, unless that particular person who's applying for the college has some type of weird mannerisms, right? I mean, if they
Mannerisms, what do you mean?
well, if they can't behave around other people and they do stupid things, and obviously,
Oh, okay.
right,
Mannerisms. I'm
which
like somebody yells in the middle of class or something. Okay, okay.
right, right. And the funny thing is that in the college that you and I went to, I had a math class with this guy, and he was supposedly like really really smart, but he would just be really really disruptive during the class, right? I mean, yet again, I didn't really care much about my classes. But the students who did and were in the class, I mean, do you think that they could focus on actually learning something? No, because he would interrupt the professor, and he would say like weird things, even though he had flawless grades. I mean, but you know what I mean. So essentially, yeah,
Let me
you don't admit those type of students because you don't think they're going to be constructive in that particular class, right?
Well,
But
well,
look, I
well.
have a
Hold
solution.
on.
One second, sorry, and then you can take over. I actually have a simple solution for racism and all that stuff, right? So whoever applies to a particular university, has to be kept in the database, and they have to write out the reason why they didn't admit that particular person. And I think every year or maybe every 3 years, colleges should be audited to make sure, like, if they have like a really bad percentage, or if they have a majority of a particular race in that particular college, I think that needs to be evaluated and shown, why is that really the case. You know what I mean? Instead of doing
I
affirmative action, I
I
think this is better.
I agree with you that I do think colleges should be audited for like, because it almost seems like colleges are at this point are kind of like entities of their own, and they're like on sovereign land in a sense, where whatever their rule is, that's the rule. And it definitely does seem like they should be uh, in some way kind of corralled to make sure that they're being as just to everyone. In all honesty, like, affirmative action should be removed. But what the other thing that should be removed, but isn't really talked about, is the whole legacy thing in colleges. And if you don't know what legacies are, it's basically, if your dad or your mom went to that school, you have a much, much, much higher chance to go uh, to that school. I think it's like, uh, for most of the big colleges, I think it's like around 70% of all the students in those colleges are from legacies. 70%, meaning it's their dad went, oh, so because then that the kid goes. Even if the kid doesn't have as good of a grades as the other students applied, but because they're legacies, they're basically, their application is much, much, much higher because of that. That should be removed completely. There's
Wow.
no reason whatsoever, just because your dad or your grandpa or your mom or whatever went there, that you should have an upper leg versus somebody who has better grades, more curricular activities, did so much work than you. But just because your dad went there, it's like you're shooing. That should be thrown out. And I think there you actually will see way more equality that people are clamoring for. That's what.
Wow. I I didn't actually know that. I
Yeah.
can't believe that that's actually true.
Yeah, the regular students that come in, they make up a minority of the students, because legacies make up the majority. The second, if I'm not mistaken, is, well, not, I actually don't know if it's the second, but a big part I know is like, people that come in on scholarships, in terms of like being some part of a team, whether it's the rowing team, whether it's scholarships for a basketball team or whatever. There's a big part of that where they just basically get all of these collegiate athletes and chess people and all these kind of stuff. And they basically give them a free ride. The rest of the people are, are the people that are actually just applying straight up. They're not getting a scholarship. They're just going like, hey, these are my grades, these are my curricular activities, and they make up the minority of the applicants.
But do you think that this is mainly Ivy League schools and private schools, or do you think?
The 70%, yes. The 70% that I mentioned is specifically for Ivy League schools. It's for the higher end, well, basically private schools. That's what it is.
Right.
But like
Right, that makes
UCLA
sense.
has a different thing. I'm not sure how legacies work for, like, like a state school or state university. I'm not exactly sure how that works.
Right.
But
I
uh but
get
but
it.
yeah, before these kind of schools, it's like legacies make up such a big part of it. It's pretty insane.
Yeah. No, I get it, but going back to the situation where you're not going to be admitted anymore based on race. As of right now, they can always reverse it and all that. But I actually think that that's the best thing for the students, right?
I think
But
so.
but if you have really good grades and you can't get in, then yeah, there's a problem there, right? There's something wrong with the system, and that needs to be corrected.
Yeah.
If you have average grades, then you go to average university or college. I mean, it's simple as that. You shouldn't be crying
But
about that you can't get into a really good university. And on top of that, you have to really evaluate whether you should be going to a university right now to begin with. You know,
Sure,
like
sure, but that's a different conversation though. But
yeah, I'm just adding
I
that.
just want to I just want to ask you though, what do you think of the whole like how do you think this affirmative action being removed from schools at this point? How do you think that this is going to affect I guess students in general going forward? Do you think that students will try harder in school so that they could have the grades to go like to really get into like an Ivy League school like Harvard or anything? Or do you think it's going to be more discouraging for students of color and stuff like
Yeah.
that? Do you think it's going to be more kind of like, oh well, I can't even go there now if my race is not going to be calculated into my
Right.
admission?
No, I think that a lot of students are going to be discouraged, and they're not going to actually try harder.
Wow.
I,
Okay. You're
no,
you're you're really going with the extremely pessimistic view. All right. Okay.
I don't think it's actually pessimistic. I honestly really do think, unless you want to become a doctor or an accountant, I mean, there might be a couple more professions, maybe like an architect or something like that. You don't really need college. You know what? If you want to be a
Right. Right.
businessman, let's get real. All you have to do is be really creative and never give up. Have a good idea and really start from the
Dude,
ground.
I get it. I get it. I get it.
Yeah,
You're basically arguing the college isn't that important. But I'm talking about the
yeah.
people that actually right, but right. But we're talking about colleges here, not that you don't need colleges.
No,
So
but what I'm
in,
saying
in
is,
this respect, the people that do want to go to college, I do think that there's definitely going to be some people who are going to be like, oh man, I was just applying. I knew where my grades were. I knew that they weren't maybe like matching up. But I am black and I'm coming from a disadvantaged household. I thought that that would be accounted for. I could see there's some people being like, oh, this sucks. But I think for the vast majority of people, like if they're just applying to colleges straight up and the only thing they're going like, I'm going to get an equal view. So meaning if I'm a black student, I have a 4.5 GPA and I have a bunch of curricular activities that have been part of like the student body and all that kind of stuff. I feel like you're going to be proud of your accomplishments and not feel like you got an
yeah,
opportunity that you might have not deserved. So,
yeah. I
so,
mean,
so for me, I feel like it might be the other way. But anyways, go ahead.
no, no. I agree with you if it's actually that particular minority that actually worked hard and put the time and effort into it, got the AP classes, passed all the classes with high level marks and all that stuff, they're going to feel great about themselves when they get into a good university, right? I mean, no doubt about that. I think it will be better for those people. But for the people that actually have average grades or below average grades, they might be sad. But alternatively, they can start working early and they're going to make more money, obviously, during that period of time, as opposed to a college student who's in college. And there are a lot of students who,
You're really on that fuck college type of thing. That's
yes,
pretty interesting.
well, I am, just because there are not a lot of jobs available right now for actual graduates. Yet again, like I said, there are specific professions that do need degrees, right? Well, I'll give you an example of one that doesn't really need a degree, but it's a big plus to have it, and that is computer science, right? We know that computer science is really all about skills, right? So if you were somebody that was focusing on programming or anything similar to that before you even went to college, then you're going to have way more skills than somebody who decided to go to college, and got a 4-year degree, because you can literally start working, before. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
you'll have more experience than somebody that just came out of college and they're like, yeah, I know how to program, but I've never worked for a company before. So can you like explain to me what needs to be done, as opposed to somebody who's like already been working and never went to college? They're going to have a huge advantage. So it depends on the
Right.
profession, right?
Right. Well, yes, but it's still like what you said was you still like a degree is still like meaning applicable, and people have like are more comfortable hiring somebody with a degree and experience than somebody with experience but no degree.
I
That's
mean,
kind
yes,
of like
but okay, you have to look at it like you versus somebody else, right? I mean, look, if you're smarter than that particular person, right? Then on the interview, you can just pretty much say something that the other person will never say, and that is, give me a test.
right,
I'll
right, right,
do
right.
it.
But
I'll do it right now, and I'll show you that I am the best programmer that you will. I can do
right, right, right. But
things,
hold on a second. But hold on a second. You're kind of like building up this person on one side. And okay, if if let's say we're taking two people who are equal in terms of their skill. One went to college, one is self-taught, and they both have a similar experience, right? Not like that one person who didn't go to college. He's like this guy who like also has a silver tongue, and he could just persuade anyone. He could prove to them that he's so much better and all. Like I'm like usually the case is people have very similar skill level, and if they're applying, like if the edge is one has a degree and one doesn't, but they have both have experience, I don't think it's going to be like, oh well, I'm going to hire this other person just because I like his gumption. I really
know.
don't see that.
I,
And again, I feel okay. I feel like again we're sort of moving away. We're having an argument now about
yeah,
whether college is good or not. But
right.
I just want to bring it back to affirmative action. I do believe that affirmative action is going to be a good thing overall because we're like it
Oh,
really is going to remove the aspect of like, hey, did I actually deserve this opportunity versus somebody who might have gotten similar grades than me, or or was I given this opportunity because of the color of my skin? And I think that's going to be overall better for the country, and I think it's going to be better for the students as well. Even
I
though some students right now are going to be like, "Oh, that sucks. I should have got this opportunity because of the color of my skin."
well, for example, one door closes and then the other door opens up. That I think that's what these students have to understand, which is really hard to understand. But 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 I really do think in a short period of time, if this story gets blown up and it's being covered everywhere and every single day for like a month, I really do think that potentially we're going to have a lot of protests. I really do.
But
And
I
you know,
never understand. By the way, I kind of agree with you that there might be. I'm not entirely sure. And the reason why I say this is I don't understand what you'd be protesting. It doesn't like this one doesn't make sense because
racism. They're
no
going
no
to
no
say
no no
they're
no
going
no
to
no
call
no
this
no no
racist.
no. Sure, no. I understand what they're, I guess, protesting. I just the point of the protest to me doesn't make sense. And the reason why I say that is it's one thing if a politician, for example, if Trump is in office and he wants to enact something, or if Biden is in office and he wants to enact something, and you want to protest that, you might get to the streets like, we hate this is horrible. But if the Supreme Court makes a decision, it's not like if you go protest the Supreme Court, like, wait a second, it seems like people don't like our decision. All right, let's do this all over again. It's like, no, like the Supreme Court only does cases that are brought to them.
Right.
What? Yeah,
Right. No, I
they're
agree.
brought to them. So meaning like this point of like we're gonna protest. It's like what is the like? Okay, good for you. Like the best thing to do is
Well,
contact your governors, contact your senators, and try for them to get another thing
right.
for the Supreme Court to try to
Well,
look through this again.
okay, I agree with you. I agree. I'm not disagreeing, but whether it's logical or illogical, it doesn't really matter. The whole point is that the media itself might blow it up into this white supremacy versus minorities, and like Roe versus Wade being overturned, right?
Hmm.
I mean, it could be something like that, but I think worse, honestly. So
Wow, no, I don't
it
know
could
if
be
it's good.
worse. It could be.
I mean, I'd be very surprised if this was worse than Roe versus Wade. I mean, it may be. I mean,
No, no, no. I'm
you can't
saying
predict you can't predict somebody doing something crazy like I don't know, start burning down the city because they
right,
don't like a decision. But at the
right.
same time, I'm like, I don't. like I'd be very surprised honestly if this has a bigger reaction than Roe versus Wade had.
Well, okay, let's put it this way. Let's hope it doesn't happen, but if the media provokes minorities, that
Sure.
could actually happen. So I mean, they could
Well,
say,
it's not. But by the way, this is not like specifically to minorities because I feel like the people that will be on the streets more than minorities are going to be people from a certain party, basically. Like meaning, I don't think it's going to be like the media isn't playing to minorities specifically. I think they're going to be playing to well, basically the left, going like, "Hey,
but
look how bad this is. This is
but
against
wouldn't
what we
would
believe."
but wouldn't this be interesting? Because look, let's put it this way. When I went to college, obviously even now we have what is that called? Student aid, right? That you get,
Hmm.
from the government. They give you aid if you're not necessarily a minority, but if you're low income, right?
Hmm.
You get a particular amount of money for a college per year, and you use that. But my question is that, like, I know that for what is that called? Community colleges, you get the aid that covers your books, your tuition, and you have leftover money to do whatever you want with it. But if you go to a 4-year university, which I think right now, depending on the particular state will probably cost you close to 30,000 a year, right? How much of that is being covered? Do you know?
Covered by what?
Well, I'm talking about the tuition. How much of a percentage is being covered with student aid?
I
For
I
that particular
I
university.
Yeah, I'm not really sure because I do think it depends. I don't think it's like a fixed amount or a fixed percentage. I think it depends on the situation.
Well, let's
So
say, let's say,
I'm not
let,
really like the answer simply. I just don't know the answer to that,
all right.
but I do
Let's
think it's
say,
different.
okay. Well, let's say they're below poverty. Would the whole thing be covered? I kind of doubt it because it's like $30,000.
Yeah, I think it's up to a certain degree. So you like it might be all of it in certain schools, but I don't think it's everywhere though. Like meaning, yeah, if you go to Harvard, probably not.
No.
At least I've never heard of that before. Um,
Yeah. I
but
mean, if you're going to Harvard and you're a minority, you're probably going there on a scholarship because I mean, there's no way you're going to be able to afford to pay back even half.
I feel like when you say
Uh,
minority, because I don't know if minority is it's low income. Let's put it this way,
yeah.
because I don't know if minority applies to this because there's a lot of Asian people, Middle Eastern people that have a lot of money that go into schools that wouldn't apply to that. Like
Yeah.
so yes, while there are Latino and Black people that would like a lot would apply to that, there's a lot of rich Latinos and rich Black people that come from rich families
Yeah.
that obviously don't
I'm
need that.
not I'm not referring to those type of people, but let's just say half, right? I mean, I would assume that Ivy Leagues are like 60K and above, and state schools are like maybe like 30K a year. But even if it's like $15,000 that you have to pay a year, we're talking about like 60 grand just on tuition, and obviously you have books and all that stuff. I mean, when
Sure.
you actually come out of the university, you graduate, you get a job, probably it's not going to be paying you as much with the economy the way it is. $60,000 owed on the student loan is actually quite a bit because
Sure.
think about this. My student loan was only $13,000. Okay.
Hmm.
And I was paying 124 a month for
Hmm.
$13,000 for, I believe, 15 years. I think it's 15 years or 10 years. No, sorry, I think it's 10 years.
Hmm.
So if you're talking about like almost like 6 times that,
Well,
you
yeah, but usually when people have that, they usually don't take it for it. If you're saying yours was like 10 years, they probably will go with 30 years. Do you know what I mean?
I don't
They're
know.
most likely not going to go with like a 10-year plan to pay off like $100,000 or something.
I don't ever remember being offered a term like
It
that.
it, it definitely exists because there are
Okay.
students who are like literally there's people who have retired and are still paying off their student loans. So yes, it
Right.
does. You could extend and extend and extend it. So
So think about this. You have $60,000 in debt.
mhm.
Instead of like going to university, like you can earn, let's say, like $30,000 over, the 4 years instead of like going to college. You could put $30,000 down for a house.
All right. Okay. We're sort of going back to. I
Yeah,
agree. I agree
yeah.
that there are possibilities
Yeah.
to
Like,
for no college, but yeah. Anyhow, let's move on. We have another, and again, this is like a huge story. So what's the next one?
another one's very similar, actually, but a little bit different. So we have a
Okay.
student loan forgiveness that has been denied by the Supreme Court. And obviously, there are a lot of people who are really, really disappointed with that. So, I mean, I'm not sure, but it was denied by the Supreme Court. So, I mean, it's going to be tough to actually go around it. And the reason why it was actually denied by the Supreme Court was because of the justification and the law that was used in order to do so. And as far as I understand, you can't forgive only a portion of the population of student loan forgiveness. So that's why the Supreme Court actually struck it down. But according to the mainstream articles, it seems like the Biden administration is going to figure out another route and still go ahead and actually forgive the loan. What do you
Well,
think of
try
this?
to try. Yeah. I think that I personally was against it because I didn't think it made a big enough difference. I'm generally for like students not being put in a position where they have to pay for the rest of their life basically off their student loan, and especially when you're 18 years old and you don't know any better, you don't understand what you're getting yourself into, and all of a sudden you have this huge loan that you have to pay off. I'm against that in general, but I do believe that like this whole student forgiveness thing, it applied to most people that it wasn't really effective. So, for example, you said you were paying $13,000 for your loan, and you said you were
No,
paying a month 100 and excuse me, you had a 13,000 loan and you were paying 100 something dollars a month, right?
$124 a month for
Perfect.
10 years.
Okay, perfect. Okay, if 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 that is like completely removed, let's say they go like, hey, we completely removed it. Does that actually change your life?
Well,
No,
listen,
no, come on.
yeah, it
Less
doesn't.
fees the
It doesn't.
better. Less
It doesn't.
hold on a second. Less fees the better. But I'm talking about if you didn't like, was that $121? Was that something that it was either you eat or you don't eat, or you pay for your rent or you don't pay rent? Was
Listen,
that really the thing or not for you?
listen. It was $124,
Sure.
and the only reason that I was essentially against the student loan forgiveness was because it didn't apply to me. I wasn't.
Okay.
I
Well, that's being honest. Okay. All right.
Yeah, that would be the only
No, no,
reason.
no, but no, no. But I'm asking. Okay, I'm just trying to make a point. Okay, I'm just gonna try to make a point, and then you can tell me what you think. Okay, my point is that I don't think it made a big enough difference for people. Like the people that are struggling was a point that you made earlier, where you said, "Oh, it's these people that have like really large loans." If you take away $10,000 from a $200,000 loan from an Ivy League, it doesn't make a difference. If I'm now paying $20 less, it doesn't affect that person. So then you're going like, okay, well the person that is like you, if now you're paying instead of $100, you're paying 20 some dollars left, it really doesn't affect your life in a major way in any way. So for me, the best thing to do was actually to affect everyone in terms of what happens to the next year. Oh, next year we're they're back to normal. So how about fixing how we're doing loans in the first place? How like an Ivy League school could tomorrow say, you know what? We looked at our books and we want to charge instead of $60,000 a year or $80,000 a year, we want to charge $200,000 a year. They
Yeah.
can't. That's the thing. There's no ruling against that. And that's the problem, is that they get to do things however they want, and you just basically have to go, "Oh, okay, I guess." And then what sucks is students are, well, students. When you're 18 years old, you're dumb. You don't know any better. You don't understand that
Yeah.
if you go to like Harvard, but you're like, I'm gonna go to art. Well, now you're gonna be a broke artist who's paying off for the rest of your life because you decided to do that. It's like we need to control how much they're charging so that kids aren't put in the position where they're paying for the rest of their life. That's the problem. And this student loan forgiveness was not doing that. To me, it seemed like it was Biden going like, "Hey, we're doing something, right? Right? We're doing something."
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
just to me was never enough, and that's where I'm coming from. This. Go ahead.
I absolutely agree with you. I mean, I mean, I think the parents are at fault. Really, it's not really the potential student that's going to go to the university. Like for example, my parents didn't know anything about anything. You know what I mean? Luckily, I was actually working and I was actually paying for most of my tuition. Right?
Hold on. I just want to stop you there. I agree that maybe your parents could know better, but it's not even that. It's the fact that you shouldn't have exploitative process when it comes to schooling. Like, and that's what it is when you have colleges charging outrageous amounts just because they can. So
Yeah.
even if your parents know, they're like, no, well, everybody that goes to Harvard, they obviously have really good careers afterwards, and not questioning whether, oh yeah, by the way, they're paying off $400,000 on the side.
Right,
You know?
exactly. But that's what I'm trying to say is I actually got lucky that I didn't have good grades. I mean, it sounds counterintuitive, sounds really stupid, but no, that's actually true because you can't get out of not paying your student loan. Like if I had really good grades and I went to, let's say, an Ivy League or to a private college like USC, I would be in big trouble right now, right? Because I would probably still be paying off that huge loan,
For
and
sure.
instead, I'm 2 years away, if you can believe it. I only have $3,000 left, thank God, on my loan, and I'm like 2 years away from actually eliminating that for life because I'm never going back to a university or anything like that, right? So, oh my God, I feel so lucky that I have, average grades. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So,
Well,
but
okay. Hold on a second. But that kind of like points the problem in and of itself, is that you shouldn't be like you like that shouldn't be the right thing. It's like, oh well, because I didn't have the grades to go to an Ivy League school. Because of that, I didn't hamper myself with a lot of debt, right?
yeah,
That's
yeah,
that shouldn't be the good thing. It should be like, oh man, you could have got a better education and not put yourself in the position where for the rest of your life you're paying off your student loan. That's where like the government needs to step in and go like, hey, by the way, you could be a business doing whatever, but as soon as you say that you're a college or your university, there should be restrictions as to how much you get to charge children. Like, because these are children who don't know any better. Yes, if you're Bill Gates' kids and money is no issue,
yeah,
whatever. But for so many kids that go to schools, it absolutely matters how much of a loan they have to take out and pay for the rest of their life. And
yeah,
it sucks that this thing had nothing to do with it. It has not. It literally is like, hey, by the way, $10,000, $20,000, we're gonna just remove. Congratulations, all of this year. So next year, people, well, you're screwed out of luck. The people that paid things already, you're screwed out of luck. But it's the people right now, currently, that are paying for stuff. And it sucks to anyone for the future. It doesn't change anything, and it wasn't enough, in my opinion. I think that they should have went further with it to actually help people, but they tried
right.
to take the easy way out. That's what it
Well,
sounds like.
I don't think it's really about helping people. I think it's more like to pretend that they're actually doing something and somebody's stopping them, right? That's what I think. But
Well, to me,
essentially,
just after that point that you made, to me, I think it's also this really looks good
yeah,
in terms of like politically, like, hey, by the way, Uncle Biden gave everybody some money. Well, not everybody, but a lot of people. Like, I'm sure there's a kid, I'm sure there's somebody that now is benefiting from me. You're welcome.
But
I do think
that
that's a politically a very smart move.
right, I agree. But then, like, oh, here come the bad guys. The
Right.
Supreme Court doesn't agree, and it wasn't handled properly, and all that stuff. But the problem with I don't know about other countries, right?
Hmm.
Because there are a lot of countries that actually include, as far as I know, maybe I'm wrong, college into taxes, and so therefore students don't actually have to pay out of pocket and all that stuff. I'm not sure if that's relevant for a lot of the countries or not. But the thing is that the education that is not being taught is like the most important part, right? So, like, for example, let's say that you want to buy a car that's $100,000, right? Well, I mean, you're not gonna go into a dealership with like $1,000 a month job and ask, oh guys, can you please give me this $100,000 car, right? Well, I mean, essentially, the same thing should be taught to, potential students for college and universities. Like, how are you going to be able to afford this? Well, at the moment, I don't really know because I don't have a job. But once I graduate, I'll figure it out, right?
Hmm.
But think about in this way: what if you don't graduate, right? What if
Hmm.
you actually do take, let's just say, 2 years
Yeah.
before you flunk out?
Hmm.
Well, you
Yeah.
still have to pay back for those 2 years,
Yeah.
right?
There's definitely no safety net for people who are put in that situation, and
Yeah,
it really does suck that well, you went 2 years, so obviously you
right.
still, like, on one side I understand that, but it's another side from, like, there are kids who like struggle, and they go into a situation where they think they could handle it, and they're like, oh, I can't really do this. I had a friend who well, both of our friends who
Yeah,
decided that he was really good at art, and he went to a school where he went there for, I think, about a year and a half, maybe 2 years, and he then after that owed, I think, around 40 or 50 thousand dollars. He
crazy.
he basically couldn't be there anymore just because it was just too difficult, and he wasn't truly an artist. He was somebody who liked art, and but he was
Yeah,
decent, but just not. Again, there's a difference between being great or not. But their qualification was, if anybody remembers this, they used to do this where they would send a letter out, hey, can you draw a bird or something, or a dog, and if you can't, send it back to us, and then you'd be able to go to our school. And he did
yeah,
that. He got approved. He's like, oh, I always liked art. This would be a really good idea. And he went and is like, oh, these are actual artists here, people who actually have, like, truly, like, legitimately awesome artists. And he was just somebody who liked art. And there was no one there going, hey, by the way, you're 18 years old, you don't know any better, and probably shouldn't take these loans out right now to pay for a
yeah.
college that you probably shouldn't be
Well,
in.
essentially, this is just my perspective, and if you're really good at art, do you really need a school? Honestly, like, if you're so good, do you think Leonardo da Vinci actually had I mean, maybe a mentor, but do you think that he had actually a teacher? I almost feel like that's
No.
BS. You know what I mean?
Well,
Yeah, because
now especially it's a little bit different. Now you can become an artist just like without going. But
I
he
don't know.
went for graphic design, so that's a little different. You kind of have to, not have to, but having the benefit of a teacher who could show you how to do things, it definitely does make things easier, and it does help you learn. Obviously,
Yeah, sure.
he could have done a lot of that self learning by himself. There's a lot of tutorials online that you don't need necessarily college for that. But again, that's the point of being dumb and young, is that, or young and dumb, and and that is just to make mistakes. But these mistakes are now costing you, and there's no ramifications for it, for somebody trying to go to a school, finding out that this is not their direction, this is not something that maybe they're good at, and them quitting, and now they still owe that money, which is
Yeah,
again, there's no safety net for those people, and it's something, again, not being addressed. uh, you know It's about like, hey, let's just give some people some money right now, and then next year it continues to be the same exact thing. It doesn't actually fix the problem whatsoever of any of these issues.
Right.
Anywho,
I
I think
no, just
yeah.
so just one last statement.
Okay.
I mean, I get why people are disappointed because they were promised, that that portion of the loan would be forgiven. But honestly, like you cannot rely on the government to actually give out handouts all the time. And in the first place, you went into the college, you got the student loan, and you knew that you had to pay it back. So you just have to change your mentality, right? So I think that this is probably a good lesson, for these college kids. And if they decide to go back to get a higher level degree, then they should know that it's really on them. They have to make sure that they make enough money to pay it back. That's what I would say. And if there's anyone who's listening who wants to go to college, then you have to. Right, I should laugh at that as well. I don't think you should, but
No,
uh,
no, 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 no. I was just assuming that your thing is if anyone is actually thinking about going to college, think twice. you
well,
know.
yes, I wasn't going to say that, but since you mentioned it, I do agree
Right.
with that statement. But
Okay.
also do calculations. Do calculations. Is anybody going to help you? How much money you're going to make per year, supposedly, and then see, how the payments are going to be, right? So do some calculations before you decide to do anything in life.
Sure. I agree that yeah, there's definitely like think twice about college, but yeah. So let's move on to our next topic, which is that Apple, um, I don't know if finally is the right word, but has hit the basically the $3 trillion um, market cap. It's the first company to ever do that. I'm assuming it's probably won't be the last company to do this. This is a major milestone, especially like not long ago we were talking about no company ever reached a trillion. That would be insane for a $1 trillion company, and now it's the first company that hit 3 trillion. What do you think? Do you think that this signifies any kind of change now that we have a $3 trillion company, that society is kind of heading in the right direction or maybe the wrong direction? What do you think of this?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't. Well, okay, if you're talking about society, I think.
I mean, by the way, I meant that in a economic sort of sense, not in a good for society or bad for society. I meant
Well,
like, yeah,
well, the thing is that a record valuation of the company, which we probably would have never thought about before, going into the trillions, now is a reality. I mean, the reason why Apple essentially hit the 3 trillion market cap is one, because they're a top tier company, and they sell the most beloved products like MacBook Pro and the iPhone, and they have headphones, and they have a lot
so
of,
many other stuff. Yeah.
yeah, they have a lot of things coming up, and they're so good at actually creating these products. But
hmm
the reason why we're at 3 trillion is because of the inflation, right? I mean, I'm almost
Really, inflation. Okay,
yeah,
I'm
yeah, of
curious to
course.
hear your explanation for that. Okay.
Well, the dollar is going down, and when the dollar goes down, something has to go up, right? So,
You're
in a
saying
sense,
Apple is the beneficiary of this?
no, I think top tier companies are the beneficiary of this, because what happens is when they print more money and they distribute it to people, right? What and to companies, not only to people and to companies. What happens is that, like, for example, if Apple got a portion, right? Then what they
Wait, a
would,
portion of what?
well, a portion of the money that's printed, right? If they, yeah, I'm saying if they got it, then they would buy
I
back.
don't understand that statement. What do you mean if so? If the government printed
Yeah.
new money, and
Yeah.
Apple. Why would Apple directly get a portion of that money that was printed by the
Well,
government?
there's grant because there's always grants like that, the top tier companies qualify for, and like
No, what are you talking about? They don't just get grants just for being a company.
no, no, no,
A
no.
grant
But
a grant would be like if the government is doing business with a company, they want them to do something specific.
that's true too. Yes, that's true too.
But
But
I don't know if they're
what
like,
COVID?
oh, Apple exists, give them $10 billion. Just
Well, for
I,
example, when COVID, happened, and the economy started going south, then they started, to print money and hand it out to companies that were not necessarily doing well. And there were a lot of big companies that actually qualify for those grants. But what I'm trying to say
yeah,
is,
that's very very drastically different than what you're talking
yeah,
about.
but but they're either way, when they're printing money, they're handing the money out to companies and to people, right? And I mean, we're talking about
I
like
right,
number
but
of
but
products.
but I don't know how this makes sense because the number one thing is that then every company would be up, but that's not the case. There's a lot of
No,
companies that are
no,
down, some companies are up. This is
no.
obviously a company that's up.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that um, people love Apple products, and
Okay.
when they get more money, it doesn't matter if it's an exec or somebody gets a nice bonus or something like that. There's a likelihood that they're going to actually buy Apple products. You know what I mean? It's kind of like almost like going to a grocery store, and if you like a particular bread, you're going to buy it every week, right? So it's almost the same thing with Apple products. Like if you have a phone, you might change it every year, right? And the more people realize that Apple products are more superior, the more increase in purchases that Apple will get, right? So, like, let's say, like for example, I was never a Apple enthusiast, right? My wife was never an Apple enthusiast, right? But when I saw, for example, that you had an iPhone, and then another friend had an iPhone, and then I was like, wait a second, like there's something to it that they actually have the iPhone. It must be really good, reliable, and all that stuff. So I got it, right? And then my wife was asking me like, I need a new phone, I need a new phone, and I told her, why don't you get the Apple, because the Apple's so reliable. You know what I mean? And it's really good. So she would have never gotten an iPhone if I didn't actually suggest it. So I think more and more people are switching to Apple products because their friends have Apple products, and they
I
actually know that it's a really good quality. So I'm saying that's another reason why I think it's hitting 3 trillion.
I I think I think that that's actually like a minority reason. I actually think that the main reason why it's actually doing so well, and that is there's a lot of people that when you get one product from Apple and you get another product, they work so flawlessly together. Like I don't mean just work flawlessly. Like whether you like Apple or you don't, there's one thing that anyone who loves Apple products, they will tell you is that things just work flawlessly together. So if you have an iPhone, a MacBook, uh, AirBuds, or whatever else, everything works so flawlessly together where your texts come in on your computer. Your AirBuds could read out the text if you have them in. It understands what you want. They work so well together. And
Mm.
then if you decide to go like, oh, you know what? I really like those buds from Samsung, and you get them, and all of a sudden the communication is not the same anymore. They don't know exactly what Apple wants. And they might work well by themselves, but there's no more connection there. And the same thing happens with if you get a like, oh look, I found this notebook or something like that. It works really well, but then it doesn't work well with everything you already have. And I think Apple has done such a terrific job of making sure everything works so flawlessly within their ecosystem
Yeah.
that now when you enter it, oh man, you really don't want to leave. And because you're in the ecosystem, you continue buying Apple products and continue, and they do that across the board. Even the new thing, the new Apple Vision, the virtual reality AR glasses that they created. Their focus was on, hey, you pick up your phone and it works flawlessly with it. You want to get to your MacBook Pro, and all of a sudden the screen pops up and knows exactly what you want to do. It works flawlessly with all the products because that's the whole point. Whereas when you look at uh, Microsoft, when you look at Samsung, they make terrific products in and of themselves, but they just don't have that. Like, if I buy a MacBook, I could go buy myself a Samsung, something else, and just basically across the board, they just don't work very well together. And I think that's the reason why I think we'll probably continue to see Apple keep on growing. That's at least what I think.
Yeah, I mean, I really do. I do think that's also the case, and I think that their share is going to continue going. I don't know what their share actually is of the
One
total
one
market.
190.
What? Say it again.
190 and 73 cents was at 3 million. At 3 billion.
No, no, no. I don't mean the share price. I mean the actual market share, like total market share. Do you know?
No, I don't. No.
Because I mean, let's say it's like 40%. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah, no,
wouldn't.
yeah, yeah. No, no, I understood the question. I just didn't, I don't know the answer to that.
Right. I'm saying I wouldn't be shocked that let's say it's 40% now and then, it turns to like 60% in the next
Of
like
the whole market? You think it's
no,
40% of the whole market?
no, I'm saying if it is 40% of the whole market, I wouldn't be surprised if it goes to like 60%. You know what I mean? Just because I don't know, there's not too many complaints as far as I know about Apple. So I think
Yeah.
their market share is going to keep on growing. Maybe even, I don't know if this is
I
realistic or not. Maybe 80% could be the
would,
case.
well,
But
I don't know. I don't know. But like, the company will definitely seem like will keep on growing. I mean, it really does seem
yeah,
like they've created enough products that work really well together. But man, not to
yeah,
make this sound any more kind of like we're like, oh yeah, Apple is great, because Apple, I think, got a lot of respect from people. If people remember, there was I think it was I don't remember what it was, some terrorist attack that happened, and the government went to Apple and go like, hey, we need you to unlock these phones. And Apple did the thing that a lot of people at that moment were like, no, 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 you need to unlock phones. And like, no, we don't do that. Like, it's our privacy between our customers. It's their phone, and even in this situation, we're just not going to do it. And I think privacy has become a bigger issue for people now, where they're like constantly hearing about phones being hacked or your computer being hacked and everything, and things like that. And I think Apple kind of stands on the ground of like, no, we're actually making sure that, hey, if you forget your password to your computer, that's it. You have to just delete everything, because we don't have your password. We can't open your computer up. We
yeah.
can't do that with your phone. We can't, like, it's your thing. And I think that there's a lot of people that really respect that idea, that they feel at least their computer is more secure, their phone is more secure, because it's just theirs. And I
I
think that they play into that. They understand like, hey, privacy is big to people, and it's only growing as more and more people are giving out private information publicly.
I
um,
think I think that there's maybe one thing that can actually, stop Apple from growing and, it might descend, but I really doubt that it's gonna go that way. But you never really know, and that is, once they move away from their core products, like they're providing services, right?
uh
Banking services. Like if they don't pay enough attention to their core business, then I think that would be the only thing that could take down Apple. But I just really doubt that that's going to happen. So I mean,
yeah,
I
yeah.
I
Go
really
ahead.
do
Yeah, go ahead.
see. I really do see, the market cap for Apple probably exceeding, 10 billion and more in the future. So, I mean,
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, they haven't given anyone the idea that they're going to slow down. Um, yeah, that definitely is a thing, and I feel like Apple is sort of a company that you could kind of keep for the long term. You might not be making ridiculous money year after year, but in terms of them continuously. But I just do want to say, you never know what's going to happen. That's the truth. You never know how things are going to be affected. if somebody is going to go like, well, like if popular people start attacking it because they take a stance on something or whatever the case is, you never, because if you ask most people, and I'm not saying this will happen with Apple at all whatsoever, I don't think this will happen, but you just never know what can happen. My point is Budweiser. Budweiser is a really good example of, if you ask somebody 6 months ago, what do you think of Budweiser in terms of, the longevity of the company and how well it's going to do? Most people will be like, no, of course it's been doing well. It's going to continue doing well. They have a huge base of people that are like almost religiously buy it. Sometimes we call that alcoholism, but in general, you have people who would legitimately just continue buying the product. And then now people are like, I'm kind of shaky on it. I don't know if how much is going to recover and if it ever will recover to where it was. And
Well, according to Budweiser themselves right now, they're coming back. So I mean,
I mean, if the company that's struggling says they're coming back, well,
uh,
yeah, we should totally trust them. I'm just saying, like, can Apple be in a situation where they say or do something that people don't like? Sure, it
yeah.
could it could absolutely. You never know. But in terms of the trend, in terms of what they've been doing year after year after year, they're a pretty solid company. That if you're just kind of looking for something to grow, it honestly kind of seems like not bad. Again, like not trying to give advice, but it's just like if you're looking for a solid company, I don't know. I personally, I don't know.
Yeah,
That's me.
well, I mean, we both agree, but obviously this is not financial advice, and people should do whatever they want, because anything can happen.
Yeah,
So,
that's the point. Is that like
but
you never know. You never know what's going to happen with that company. You never know what's going to happen with the market. You never know in general what you'll see. Next time.
okay, that's it for that.
All right, guys. Well, thank you guys for joining us, and hope to see you guys next week. Leave a like and all the other fun stuff, and we'll see you next time.